Rev up your engines! All right, today we got a beautiful car. It's a 2014 Volvo S60, but it burns oil, and it's because they didn't build them correctly. Now, the owner saw it's burning oil. He bought it used with like 20,000 miles on it. Now it's got 124,000 miles, and it burns oil. So Volvo said, well, you pay us $300, we'll analyze it. And they did oil consumption tests and found, yes, indeed, it burns quite a bit of oil. And in between oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, he's burning like a quart and a half of oil. So he took it to Volvo. They charged him $300 and said, yes, indeed, it's burning oil. We will contact the Volvo Motor Company. So they did, and they said, oh, car's got too many miles on it. We're not paying for anything. And they want to rebuild the engine, which would cost a little bit more than what the value of this car is. Now, here's what the problem actually is that makes these things burn oil. And it's why if you do a compression test of the engine, take the spark plugs out, measure it, it won't show you the problem because, see on this picture of piston ring, there's a compression ring on the top. That one's okay, so you'll have compression. But there is a wiper ring. The wiper ring wears, and sometimes the oil control ring that's on the very bottom will also wear. So if you do a compression test, they got plenty of compression. But the wiper ring and the oil ring get worn, and so it starts burning oil. Interestingly enough, those famous Toyota engines that they had, like in an 07 Camry and the Scions, they had the same problem. You could do a compression test, they had plenty of compression, but the stupid oil rings under the compression rings wore out prematurely. Toyota actually rebuilt quite a few engines for that, and Volvo says they're going to, but hey, it's typical. They tell them, oh, you got too many miles on it. Volvo knows there's a problem, but they say, oh, this got 120,000 miles. That's too many miles. Horse manure, if you ask me. They know they made a mistake. They should have been forced to rebuild all these engines free, regardless of mileage, because they built them incorrectly. Now, if you have a more normal car, Toyota, Honda, Ford, whatever, they usually have a PCV valve. Positive crankcase ventilation valve. If they get stuck open, you're going to burn oil. A lot of times, those things cost $15-20. And take my advice, if you are going to change a PCV valve, believe me, get the original equipment one, the dealer one, because the aftermarket ones made in China often don't work right. They can't even turn your check engine light on. And they're so easy to pop in and out of most cars. Now, this has a Volvo system. They don't use PCV valves. They use a different system. And truthfully, it's a crappy system. As you can see, here's a picture of the Volvo breather system, they call it. They do not have a PCV valve. This part of his system did pop off, so he got a new one. And at least he's thinking now it doesn't seem to be burning as much oil, which is a good thing. Now, this is a poorly designed engine with bad rings. Not the compression rings, but the oil rings and the wiper rings, right? But considering the usage that his has, which is maybe a quart and a half every time he changes the oil, that's not outrageously high. And since he found that part, it was only $23. Volvo wanted to sell him the whole system. All the parts are $300. He just changed that part and it fixed that part. You do have an engine like this, my advice is use the highest quality oil. Use the GF6 oil, the one that's made for modern engines that are turbocharged. They'd use lighter weight oils. And I would, just because of this engine design, instead of changing the oil every 5,000 miles, I would change it every 3,000 miles. And it certainly would be a livable thing because, hey, the value of this car to rebuild the engine, the Volvo dealer said, well, that's how you fix it. You're going to rebuild the engine, right? This is a single turbo system. It's got one turbocharger on it. And these 5-cylinder engines, they're pretty strong engines. I mean, they can last quite some time. Now, being a 2014, I'm kind of disappointed it's still got a rubber timing belt on it. I mean, why would you want a rubber timing belt, especially on a turbocharged engine, is beyond me. And since Volvo's stated position these days is, we're only going to make electric and hybrid electric cars in the future, the Chinese who own this don't give a rat's behind about gasoline and petrol engines and their designs. I mean, the very fact that this is a 2014 and it's still got a rubber timing belt on it, oh, let's put a metal timing chain. Oh, that costs too much money to redesign it. We're not going to make these for all that much longer. So, it probably would behoove anybody not to think about buying a late model gasoline or diesel Volvo if they do go that way, or just from how they didn't build this right and they don't stand behind it. It's kind of telling you it's not a company that you should really put your faith in. Now we got our scan tool hooked up. We'll give this Volvo a one over. Here we go. We'll do standalone diagnosis. S60 2014. That's all the info. See, we can do a complete topology scan of all the CAN systems. So here it goes. And while it's doing it, we'll look around. It's a beautiful car. There's no arguing that. The black and chrome, super comfortable seats, lots of room in the back. I mean, it's a luxury sedan. Got the phone built in. Controls for the HVAC is easy. You want head, you push head, body, feet. That's a pretty cool design, you know? Now it's got 6 trouble codes. So we'll start with the bottom and work our way out. Integrated audio module. Okay, well, we probably don't care much about that, but we'll see what it is anyways. Antenna, general electrical fault circuit, the ground control module output, general electric fault circuit opens. Well, we'll erase those. That's a problem. When you get all this complexity, you're going to get all kinds of squirrely codes. That's pretty much meaningless stuff. It obviously still has. It's a hard code, so. Now, the radio works perfectly fine, so we'll just ignore that one. Keyless vehicle module. They'll often get codes for the keyless system. It's here, it works, but let's see what crazy trouble code that's got. Journal receiver, bus signal message faults, message meeting. Hey, it opens and closes, locks his car, starts the car. So again, we'll just erase it. And in this case, it's not a hard code because at least that one green. So now we'll go down here. Central electronic module, another module, some type of computer code, I suppose. Here we go. Keyless vehicle thing, again, that stupid keyless thing, so we'll erase that. The parking brake module, all right. We'll see what that is. Plus communication with brake control module, general fault information, no subtype information. Well, he says it doesn't roll down hills when he puts it on, so we'll erase that too. Now, the only one that I was really concerned about is the next one, because it is an ECM. Well, that was another code for the stupid keyless system, and it seems to be working. So, let's look at some live data. This is transmission information here. They are very complex transmissions, but they do shift like a dream when they're working correctly. And as we look at engine data, okay, so you've got the boost air temperature for the turbocharger, fuel pressure, and we can see the average misfire, all cylinders, 0. It's running perfectly fine. ECU supply voltage is good. Car's running, charging right. No other than it's burning a little oil. It's running pretty good. So let's take it for a road test. Relatively heavy car. So these things, they have pretty good ride. Now, it does have 120-something thousand miles on it. But here we go on the crappy roads of Rhode Island, and we're hitting the bumps. And really, it rides quite well, even with this kind of mileage, with the original struts. These are nice riding cars. They're Volvos, they're very safe inside, and they're very quiet too. I don't hear anything. It's a sensitive car. You saw it had the hood and belts. Well, the hood wasn't good closed. You gotta push down on the toy. So now that's back to normal. So here we go on the road, and we'll see how this thing takes off. All right. Little squeal there before the traction control went in, and it takes off like a rocket. These 5 cylinders have smooth torque to begin with, and with the turbo, they really are a lot of fun to drive. When you want to pass somebody, here we go. You're going to pass people, right? No problem whatsoever. No shake, no anything. It's a very smooth, comfortable car for driving. Unlike the rectangular Volvos of years past, this is a beautiful looking car, you know? They finally learned how to make cars that look good too, not that just run good. Now, sometimes this air conditioner makes a little noise. It's not doing it now. With this age, it's not surprising. The only thing I got about Volvos is they don't have enough airflow for me. Sweden, it gets cold, right? Doesn't get that hot. They're still not pumping enough volume for me. You get in a Toyota or a Honda, they're blowing cold air up the wazoo. This, to me, could blow a little bit further out. You have a little bit more power, but that's just Volvo for you. It's not making a noise now, but I do have to say, he bought it used. He's put over 100,000 miles on it. The only big thing he had to do was change the control arm. The bushings went out on it, but it lives in Connecticut. They use all that salt in the winter. For a car that's lived in Connecticut, the paint's still in excellent shape. Do you see bubbling paint anywhere on the rims? No. Considering that's the only thing he's really had to replace on it. It's just a shame that Volvo wouldn't fix his engine problem, which would cost him more than what the car's worth today to do. And hey, I mean, if he's got to add a quart of oil every 3,000 miles or so, I wouldn't really worry about that. But I'm giving him a bottle of Bernie's ATS oil cleaner. If those rings are sticking, put this in, rev it up 2,000 RPM for 20, 30 minutes, then change the oil filter, and then he's going to see. Maybe it will stop burning oil. I've seen it help a lot of them. The rings get stuck. Does have a lot of mileage, but I'd be kind of leery about it on this engine just because this engine is notorious for having those rings that some of it's getting by and then it's burnt. But the car itself, hey, 100,000 miles, him driving it, bought it with 20-something thousand miles on it. Hey, it's been a good car for him. He's just sad that the thing's burning oil when it didn't burn oil before. So, now you know a little bit more about the Volvo S60s, what kind of problems they can have, what you would want to look at. First thing I'd say is take off the plastic beauty cover, pull out the 5 spark plugs and look at them. If they're coated with oil, don't buy the engine. If they're reasonably okay, yeah. But if you do have a big oil burner, those plugs are going to get caked with burnt oil, burnt carbon, right? And it's pretty easy to tell. Doing a compression test on one of these, I mean, it's always a good idea to do a compression test because you never know what's worn out in a car. But it's not the compression rings that wear out in this engine. All the ones I ever checked, they had fine compression. The problem was they just had bad lower rings, so they'd burn oil. And this one burns a little bit of oil, but it's still a pretty good car. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.